Good evening, everybody. It's Steve with Real Progressives. Tonight's Sunday night. It's 9 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock. Mr. Butters is getting a little bit older, and the idea of going to bed at 8 o'clock is just not happening. Tonight, we're going to talk about that feeling of being utterly powerless. The workplace. You're at your job. You're at your job, and you realize that you have no power. You're at your place of employment and realize you're there at their whim. You realize that your entire existence, your family's ability to eat, your ability to keep a roof over your head, the ability for you to pay your electric bill, the ability for you to go to the doctors, the ability for you to survive one more day, 24 hours, right, is tied completely to your employer's their happiness, whether they think you're a good guy, whether they like the stories you tell at work, whether they like the clothes you wear, whether they like your hairstyle, whether they like your weight, whether they like your race, whether they like your gender. You are completely and utterly beholden to your employer. Your employer has tremendous control over your life. You can be the absolute best employee ever, the best employee ever, and still lose your job. This is what we call powerlessness. There are certain things you can do within your power, but it doesn't mean that you'll have a job tomorrow, right? So as you go home, you're already on pins and needles, even if you have forgotten that your situation is at your employer's whim. And when the jobs are dried up, when the area that you live in, there's no work, it makes you feel not only powerless, but desperate as well. So when you have someone that feels both powerless and desperate, what do you think? What do you think goes on in that person's mind when they have no hope? There's no work, and there's no services, and they are trapped, literally trapped in a situation that they can't get out of. 40,000 people every single year commit suicide because of joblessness. 40,000 people every single year commit suicide because of joblessness. So many of us in the progressive movement are pushing very, very difficult, pushing hard, pushing incredible amounts of information out to people about a federal job guarantee. A federal job guarantee allows you to have some power, doesn't it? It allows you to have some agency in your life. It allows you to serve your community so that you're not applying for another job as an unemployed worker, but an employed worker. You don't have breaks in your employment history. You don't have breaks in your health coverage, etc. But wait a minute, didn't the narrative of this interview or this live stream say something about the trouble with Tribbles, rabbit holes, and all this other good stuff? Yes, it did. And I want you to understand something. When we feel powerless, when we feel like that we've got no choices, when the choices have been taken from us, we start focusing on things that we feel maybe make us prove that we have no agency. We prove that we're out of power, prove that we're at the bottom of the ocean. And folks chase these storylines to their own detriment because they feel they've got no power, so they've got to prove that it's not something about them per se. It's the fact that there's somebody out there in particular that's keeping them down. It's holding them back. You know, we hear calls of capitalism must end. We hear folks focusing on, QAnon or whatever. We see folks focusing on all these things that don't have anything to do with employment. That don't have anything to do with paying their bills. That don't have anything to do with survival. It's almost like an opiate for the masses. And instead of it being religion, it's 1,000 forms of powerlessness that we find as a result of scenarios we paint. And we use them to show how we can't do anything. And when the first round of powerlessness kicks in, when that first round of storytelling that we tell ourselves kicks in, and we get bored of it and it gets old, we venture down the rabbit hole and we find a new storyline that keeps us realizing how powerless we are and how impossible it all is and how there's no chance that we could do anything because the bad guy over there, whoever it is that day, could be Trump, could be the Rothschilds, could be George Soros, could be the Illuminati, could be the Bilderberg Group, could be some other Ron Paul phantasm that we decide is the reason that we cannot have agency in our lives. There's no chance, there's no point in fighting, we're all going to die, it's over. And so here we are, we're facing things like climate change. And there's been recent studies here that we posted in the last couple of days that suicides go up 10% for 1 degree of climate change hikes in the temperature. 10% suicide increase in the United States. Hopelessness is very, very real. And there are an incredible amount of people that are out there that are selling hopelessness. They're selling you hopelessness not only with their posts, but they're selling you hopelessness with the media. And they're selling you hopelessness everywhere you go. Hopelessness is addictive. Feeling like you can't do anything, so why try, is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a way to give yourself an excuse for doing absolutely nothing but bitching and whining. Now, an activist, by very definition, takes action. An activist, by its very definition, takes action. They educate, they activate. But we're too busy with flashlights and rope, throwing it down into the rabbit hole, trying to pull our brothers and sisters out of Alex Jones' locker. We're busy trying to pull each other out of Alex Jones' locker because we enjoy being powerless. So we follow these Pied Piper things like QAnon, and we follow all these other Pied Piper type things that make us feel edgy, like we're in the know. We follow things that make us feel like we have some power in some weird way, even though we don't. There's nothing useful that will come out of it at all. It's a distraction that allows us not to focus on the fact that we don't believe we have agency in our lives, that we don't have the ability to make change. It's interesting to me that many of the progressives I speak to tell me it is impossible to do anything as long as the Republicans are in charge. And then the next thing is it's impossible to do anything as long as the Democrats are in charge, because the Democrats go to the same master. And then I hear it's impossible to do anything because the candidates are bought and paid for. And then I hear it's impossible to do anything. And we convince each other. And we tell each other. And we continue to tell each other how impossible it all is. And we bite on these silly storylines that make life feel a little bit more exciting, instead of following through on the thing that I started this whole discussion off with. If we united and demanded a federal job guarantee, do you think Republicans and Democrats, as people, forget the leadership, I'm talking about regular people that are struggling to pay their bills, that are struggling to feed their families, that are petrified of losing their job, their health care? Do you think if we all took the same energy that we pour into absolutely ridiculous QAnon bullshit things, do you think if we put that energy toward regaining our own voice, to regaining our agency, to speaking truth to power once again in a meaningful way, do you think that if instead of teaching each other that it's impossible, we started talking to each other that it is possible, and it doesn't matter who's in office as long as we are united and pushing, do you think that maybe it would make a difference? I do. I absolutely do. I sit there and I watch my children. And when my children feel it's hopeless, they start thrashing their legs, arching their back, drop to the floor, kick and scream on the floor. They do the things that people that feel powerless, that want something different, but don't know how to articulate it, do. Now, as adults, we don't do that. As adults, we just go sink into the couch with our remote control in our hands. We go drink a 40-ounce malt liquor. We go out there doing something completely and utterly wrong. We do something that makes our lives just a little bit worse to make sure that we live a self-fulfilling prophecy of destruction. But what if, instead of saying, Democrats are bad, Democrats are this, Democrats are that, or Republicans are this, or Republicans are that, what if we talked about that thing that we all have in common? A need to pay our bills, a need to pay our electric, a need for gainful employment, a need for meaningful employment, a right to a job. What if instead of allowing people to take us down these trails, these silly economic conspiracy trails that make us all lose hope, imagine if instead we embraced knowledge and insisted on being served? Imagine us, instead of resisting knowledge, we insisted our representatives serve us. What if instead of giving up our agency, we reclaimed it and demanded a voice? I see my family and I look and I say, you know what? I've had many problems. My son, being autistic, creates a lot of logistical challenges to maintaining full employment for my own person. There's therapy in the morning. When there's meetings at work that you can't miss, but you can't miss your son's therapy either. There are phone calls that have to be made between 8 and 5 to places that you got to wait on hold for more than 45 minutes to get through during the workday. for services for your special needs child or for your health care. Imagine living a life on pins and needles as most of us do, having no time to be an activist, having no time to go and do things that will give us agency. They keep us in a place where we feel powerless, and it's by design. It's to ensure that we will bend a knee to the whim and will of our employers. Now, they're paying us. So there's the caveat, there's the thing. And our lives are dependent on being able to pay our bills and eat. They've got us by the short hairs. And it's real easy to give up and to check out and to ignore the problems around us because we don't feel capable, we don't feel competent, we don't feel up to the challenge. I know, I feel that sometimes myself. There are nights, and I'm venting here, I'm telling you, the inner struggle I feel as I lay down to sleep, and I realize every day I wake up, that could be my last day at work. Every time I come home, something bad could happen. And I sink into my couch with that warm wash of depression, that feeling of being sucked down by gravity right in to the place you're laying. That inability to speak because to speak feels like a waste of time. That feeling of your heart beating up here in your throat. That tension in the back of your neck. And then the scary part. The dreams that are beyond your control. As you think about hanging yourself. As you think of jumping off a bridge. As you think of overdosing on pills. And you say to yourself, that's no way to live. That's no way to live, is it? Having personal agency, having the ability to make decisions that are in your best interest. Unfortunately, doing something in your best interest doesn't necessarily mean that you'll have a paycheck coming in the next day. You're trapped, aren't you? You feel trapped. I feel trapped. I know that trapped feeling. You may love where you work. But what happens when real life shit hits? I want to give you an example. Tuesdays, my son has occupational therapy. Wednesdays, my son has feeding clinic. Each day, Tuesdays and Thursdays, he goes to a special center. Every day, for an hour, we wear these headphones called a tomatis. And what we do is we listen to classical music that spikes in loudness and then distorts and goes bassy and then goes trebly, and it teaches you to listen. But this is an hour of your life, of your child's life, with big frigging cups on your ears, listening to this stuff. Now all of a sudden there's things you didn't get done that you had to get done, but you got no choice. Because this is what it takes for your son to be well. This is what it takes for your son to have a chance. Because let me tell you something, when you have a special needs child with a neoliberal government and a bunch of assholes that are willing to accept neoliberalism and tell you to eat your peas. You start thinking about what life for your son will be like when you're not here on this planet, when you're dead and buried and you're 6 feet under. The child may grow, but the ism doesn't go. Who's going to take care of your child when you're not here? Have you planned for that? That should make your heart skip a beat. That should make your heart flutter up in your throat. And yet, we sit here and we talk about QAnon. We sit here and talk about the Rothschilds. We sit here and we talk about George Soros. We sit here and we talk about stupid things that have absolutely zero value. Zero value to society whatsoever. It's a distraction, and it takes people who could otherwise be useful, and it diverts them and takes them out of the game completely. And then we all are hopeless then. Now we really are screwed. Because when we don't have enough people fighting for the things that we need, like a federal job guarantee, when you're sitting there going, well, what's going to happen? How do we handle these things? It's like, dude, we've been telling you all the time. Learn fucking MMT, goddamn you. You're like, but what do? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And it's like, listen, we're all in this ship together and it's going down. But we can survive together. We can lift each other up. We can make this possible. Far too many people think they are woke, posting distracting bullshit on social media, asking superfluous, stupid questions, thinking they're edgy. And none of us have a federal job guarantee. So if your employer fires you, you get your $500 a week. And if you have child support, you get your $200 a week. And there you go. And your house is taken. Your car is taken. You can't feed your children. And you're screwed. You can't go to the doctor. You have to file bankruptcy. And then you start looking at that noose one more time. You start looking down the barrel of a gun one more time. Seeing the angle, you got to put your big toe on that trigger to get it to blow out your brains. I've talked to too many people that think that way. I'm not joking. It is terrifying to see how many people are willing to take their life right now because of desperation and hopelessness. Now, people won't like what I'm about to say next, and I'm used to that. But I am absolutely disgusted with the conspiracy peddlers in this movement that sidetrack people and force good people who are trying desperately to teach people stuff, to give them agency, only to have people come through with their disease and spread it around. They spread it around. They have substituted real knowledge with fake knowledge. Bullshit from some dude at a fire pit, like me right now, with this little candle thingy. The only difference is I'm not giving you bullshit. I don't have time in my life to give you bullshit. Because if I do this, I'm doing it as much for myself as you, because I want us to win. I want us to win. I want us to win, and I want us to believe we can win, and I want us to reach out to somebody else and grow exponentially. and stop allowing people to steal hope from us. If I were you, I would be ravenously protective of hope. Hope gives people health. Hope heals the body. Hope heals the mind. Hope heals the soul, and it heals relationships. And it allows you to wake up ready to take on what you need to take on because you know there's hope. And not hope in some Santa Claus, not hope in some Easter bunny, but real hope. Real hope in understanding that our problems are all economic. You don't even realize it, but they are. Economics is the efficient distribution of real resources. It's not just pieces of paper. You understand? Efficiency in the economy, efficient distribution of resources. We are nowhere near that right now, are we? Many have very little. Few have too much. But the trick is, we've been led to believe that in order for everybody to have a life with dignity, for everybody to have a job, for everybody to have benefits, citizens' benefits, that we somehow or another got to take from Peter to pay Paul. You've been told many times, I'm sure, the only problem with socialism is you eventually run out of other people's money. But that's a crock of shit. Because a state currency in a modern money economy, there is no shortage of paper. There is a shortage of political will. And the political will isn't there because the haves are busy making you have-nots, us have-nots, feel hopeless. We check out of the game. We lose our agency. We lose our voice. We lose our hope. And then we die. For real die. Not a fake die. A real die. One that there's no coming back from. One that there is no hope once you've taken that step. I don't think people realize sometimes how deadly serious I am about the scourge of suicide, not only in this country but around the world. Neoliberalism creates mental illness. Neoliberalism creates sick relationships. Neoliberalism creates scenarios of scarcity where we have to attack each other for table scraps. Neoliberalism takes hope and throws it in the trash can. The haves pray to God that we get so desperate that we'll accept whatever they give us. While we sit there amongst ourselves, hating the immigrants, hating the other people that are different from us, because we believe somehow or another there's not enough to go around. That if we don't take care of our veterans, then we can't take care of our immigrant brothers and sisters. It's a lie. It's always been a lie. But it's a lie they use to keep us totally desperate and at each other's throats. It's time, friends, when you feel depressed and you feel like you can't go on any further, you pick up that 50,000-pound phone and you call somebody. You make a phone call to somebody. You do not cave into that. You call a suicide hotline. You call a friend that will give you some hope. But on a macro level for this movement, real hope is an understanding that we have the ability to give everyone the kind of life that they deserve. This isn't about hard work or a lack of hard work. This is about being a citizen. This is about being a human being. This is about having a right to a job, having a right to health care, And then building the system that accommodates that, hiring the people to make those things happen, and providing the funds to pay for the resources, which our government creates with keystrokes with congressional appropriations. Folks, real hope. Every time you see, there was a little thread going a little while ago. I know I get in a lot of trouble because I'm nasty as hell. Downright hateful to people that sit there and troll a thread about economics. When people don't understand and they sit there and go, what do you go? It's a great idea. What about Weimar Republic? Oh man, Venezuela. They do that stuff. Yeah, I get downright hateful because they're trying to steal the hope. Because they're dumb and they don't know, but they got things to say. And they steal the hope from people that are fighting the real fight for a New Deal. It takes an army of people to go out and multiply, a force multiplier like you've never seen before. Because it takes that kind of pressure to get powers that are against you to say it's easier to go with them than it is to deal with the fallout of not hearing their cries. I get downright hateful when people in our own midst try to tell us, you don't know what you're talking about. What about inflation? Fuck you. What about suicide? But what about inflation? Fuck you. What about suicide? I've had enough of people that are ignorant and throw the stupid shit about inflation and throw the stupid stuff about Zimbabwe and Venezuela. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. But they feel fully empowered to sidetrack an entire conversation by pinching a loaf from the community well and wrecking hope for people that are eagerly trying to learn. It's a freaking paper-thin glass, paper-thin ice that we're walking on between hope and despair. And when these people come in with their Venezuela, Weimar Republic, what are you going to have, hyperinflation shit, and they don't know what they're talking about, it is catastrophic, the damage that it does to people that are on the periphery trying to learn. It's like crabs in a barrel. They see somebody coming out of the barrel. They're almost out. They're trying to win. They're like almost, their head's almost above water. And the son of a bitch goes, no, Rothschilds, come on back in the bucket. We're all going to die. Come back in the bucket. No, you can't get out of there. I need you down here with me suffering. Stay stupid, my friends. Stay stuck, my friends. Don't leave me. I want to talk Illuminati. I want to talk about the Jewish banksters. I want to talk about the Rothschilds. Don't leave the barrel with me. Ron Paul called. Alex Jones called. People have to have hope to carry on. And when it's all for naught, when it's all doom and gloom, when there's no chance in hell, it sucks the life out of people. It's violence. Do you understand me when I say this? That is abuse. That is gaslighting. That is hope-stealing, gaslighting evil. I don't even cut them any slack anymore. I used to cut them slack and say they just don't know any better. There, but by the grace of God go I. But then I realized something. They choose hopelessness and want to suck you down into the hopelessness, and they want you to suffer. I can't live that way. I need hope in my life. I need to fight for something meaningful. I need to fight for something that makes my son's life better. I need to fight for security so I'm not living in constant fear of losing a job or losing my health care or losing something else important. Don't you want hope in your life? Don't you want to see our movement win? Don't you want a better tomorrow? Or are you just ready to chip it in and say to hell with it? The problem that I started this off with was the trouble with Tribbles. For those of you who know the old Star Trek movie, or Star Trek show, with the Tribbles. These little things bunny hump like crazy, and they just kept multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. That's what these conspiracy theories do. It's a shame we can't get the Tribbles to grow for the truth. That's what we need. But unfortunately, the Tribbles keep chasing the coattails of the Rothschilds and the Illuminati and the Bilderbergs and everything else that sidelines the entire movement and takes us out of the game. It takes us out of the game. And I ask you again, my friends, do you love your family? Of course you do. Do you love your children? Absolutely, I'm sure you do. Do you want a better life for your children than you've had? I would like to believe you do. Do you want them to inhabit a planet that has toxic air, toxic water, toxic food, no health insurance, no job security, no job guarantee, no medical guarantee, no education, no nothing but debt, 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 and an employer sitting there saying, you do anything I don't like and you're gone. If I don't like everything you do, you're gone. And everything you ever needed is gone. Is that what world you want to inhabit? Or do you want to do something about it? Do you want to do something about it? Or do you want to just wax poetic about the Illuminati? You say you want a revolution. I'm telling you right now, there's not enough guns in the world to have a real revolution. Our revolution's got to be a cerebral one. Our revolution has got to be a mental one, where we recognize what our needs are. We each one teach one. We build a movement. We build a community. We build a community of practice. And we take it to the house. We take it to the streets. We take it to the media. We take it to town halls. We take it to our politicians. We take it to other activists. We take it to the political parties. We take it wherever we are, to our local churches, to our PTAs. I don't care where, you take it there. Because hopelessness, unfortunately, travels faster than hope. Because people are afraid that just like Lucy's going to pull the ball when Charlie Brown tries to kick a field goal, they're afraid that once they have hope, somebody's going to snatch away a primary in a rigged election. Somebody's going to go ahead and take their donations and find out that Hillary was always going to be the nominee. And then they walk away and they check out and they feel hopeless. No, folks, I'm here to tell you, I don't care what politician's up there. It's up to us. It's up to us. Imagine if we did for the truth what these Alex Jones wannabe people do for a lie. Imagine if we spread the word like that instead of like these knuckleheads that are sharing hopelessness. Imagine if we did that. Imagine what we could do. Imagine the hope we could breed in other people. And all of a sudden, we'd be on a hope mission. A mission of mercy. A mission of hope. A mission of victory. It requires, when you're falling into your couch deep in depression and wave after wave after wave of warm death pours over you. Every time that warm feeling of death washes over you and you feel like it's too late, that you're in despair, life is going to end for you because you can't take another breath without feeling too much pain. In that moment right there, say, hell no. And know that once you understand the things that we've been talking about with economics in particular, the gateway to everything that we need is about efficient allocation of resources through our monetary system. You find it interesting that the very people that are hopeless and don't think we can do anything are the same people that think somehow or another we're going to overthrow the government, then we're going to overthrow the Federal Reserve, then we're going to overthrow this, we're going to overthrow that, but yet you can't get them to unite for 5 minutes and fight for a job guarantee. Do you see how useless that is? Do you see how utterly worthless that is? How duplicitous that is? It destroys. It destroys hope in others. So when you're laying on that couch, contemplating the darkest thoughts in your brain, when you go to work and your head is down and you're looking at the floor, and you feel those chills up your spine like somebody's watching you, shake it off. Shake it off. And find ways to volunteer. Find ways to connect. Find ways to spread hope. And find ways to shut these sons of bitches down that keep peddling myths and legends that sideline entire movements. Don't be loyal to a party. I'm telling you right now, it's got nothing to do with whether you vote a certain way or not. I vote a certain way because I'm as freaking left as you're going to get. But I also have common sense in my head, and that tells me that I don't ever carry the water for a party, no matter what party it is. Because they have one thing and one thing only on their mind: retaining power. It has nothing to do with serving us. They try and act like that's what they're doing. But the reality is, they'll sell out to whatever. Look at these assholes that are signing off to privatize our national parks because of some belief that the government is broke and we don't have enough money. People are out there telling people, hey, reckless spending will make a nation go broke. Fuck off. That's not true. It's bullshit. I mean, you got to be smart in what you spend on, because you do have a finite pool of resources that you can go after. But it's important that we understand what is going to kill us first in order of operations. Healthcare, we need it. A job, we need it. Education, we need it. Green energy, we need it. Guess what we don't need right this second? Revenge on the rich getting their tax dollars, because they don't pay for anything, right? So in order of operations, ask yourself, is it more important to chase after somebody's tax dollar than it is to chase after making sure people don't have to worry about getting cancer and being able to go to a hospital and not go bankrupt and not end up committing suicide because they can't afford their bills? To end a drug war that claims more people in poverty than you will ever know, and institute a job guarantee. Isn't that better to do that than sit there and worrying about taxes that literally don't pay for a thing right now? Don't get me wrong. You will never hear me say don't tax the rich. I am all about taxing wealth. because sometimes people have too much access to too much wealth, which imbalances the resource distribution. But right here, right now, instead of worrying about taking away from somebody, let's worry about giving to somebody. Let's worry about giving people what they need before we worry about chasing after boogeymen. Taxes serve an incredibly important part of our economy. Without the tax imposition, there is nothing driving the need for that currency. You want to talk about our currency being worthless? Get rid of taxes and watch what happens. The Confederacy, the Confederate dollar, wasn't any good because they couldn't enforce taxation. That's why they went into hyperinflation. You look over there at Germany, the Weimar Republic. Why did they go down? Because they had debt denominated in a foreign currency. They had been just destroyed by the Treaty of Versailles. And their ability to produce was absolutely destroyed. Their factories were destroyed. They didn't have real resources. There were embargoes on everything. They had no chance. Hyperinflation. It wasn't about printing money. That came after the fact. Zimbabwe. What about Zimbabwe? Let's go ahead and bookmark this one for future use in case one of these fools comes in and tells you this. Mugabe took away the farmland, which is their primary industries, etc., their means of getting food back and forth to one another. He took the farms from the farmers and gave them to the villagers, the tribal people. They didn't know how to farm. It's like, 60% decrease in production. They lost the ability to feed their people. And then the hyperinflation came after. It wasn't from printing money. It was from a lack of real resources and political instability. Now let's go to Venezuela. You got a single product, gasoline, petrol, oil, a single industry propping up the entire economy. And their dollar, their money was pegged to the US dollar. Not only are these idiots able to be manipulated on a global scale, but anytime somebody else wants to play games with the amount of oil out in circulation, etc., they can literally bankrupt that nation. They can destroy that nation because of all the restrictions that they've put on themselves, all the instability that is there because of the games they played, because of these pegs, these artificial constraints. The United States doesn't have those problems. That's not something we have to worry about. It's incredibly important that you remember this because it's hope. It's hope. And it is the silver bullet to swatting away stupid. It is incredibly important that you don't allow a soul to ever say anything as worthless as the problem with socialism is Venezuela. You see those bastards at CRTV saying this crap all the time. Please remember the rabbit hole that we keep going down, the QAnon bullshit that people follow, all the conspiracy gibberish is just a sidelining movement. The hyperinflation calls are another chance to try and steal hope away. The Zimbabwe folks steal hope away. Venezuela folks steal hope away. Weimar Republic steal hope away. What are you going to do? Print more money, steal hope away. Every time you see those people do that, no, they are trying to steal your joy, steal your hope, and they are not entitled to it. They are not entitled to it. Because good people die young without hope. Good people find the rafters in their basement, cinch up a noose, and dangle. Because when you don't have hope, you do stupid things. You do stupid things. And when you see these people do this stuff, I'm trying to tell you point blank, you're not the one that's wrong. They are. Not only are they wrong, but they're also committing an act of violence against you. and my children by sitting there spouting that hyperinflation crap. Okay? Every time they talk about the nation being broke, they're committing an act of violence against my children. Every time they sit there and talk about inflation, they're committing an act of violence against my children. Every time they say something about the private Federal Reserve, they're committing violence against my children. Do you see how I'm putting this? I'm telling you right now, I don't take it lightly because they're trying to steal hope. They're trying to steal hope away from you. They don't want you climbing out of the barrel. They don't want you coming out of the darkness. They don't want you to have hope because they don't have hope. Flip the script. You give them hope. Teach them. Show them the truth. Stand up for truth. Be a real truth teller. And stay out of the rabbit hole. There's nothing good going on down there. And let me tell you one final thing before I sign off tonight. So many of you follow people, these personalities, these entertainment personalities, these alt media personalities that talk about missing money from the Federal Reserve, missing money, blah, blah, blah. Where's this much money? Hey, they lost this. The Federal Reserve lost this much money. The Federal Reserve doesn't have dollars. They've got spreadsheets. And when the military puts their vouchers in, they do their invoicing, they do their accounting, if I's are not dotted just so, if T's are not crossed just so, there's delays in processing those payments through. But every one of these stupid things has been debunked. But they use this as a means of sidetracking you, sidelining you. Why do you let them tell you these things? Why do you listen to them? Why do you allow them to steal your hope? Why do you allow that? Just say no. Save a life and provide someone hope. Be part of the solution. Don't be a loser. You have a choice. This is your agency. This is where you get to make a choice. You can either be in the victory and help fight for a job guarantee so nobody is stuck in a job where the bosses are not in any way, shape, or form letting them be human beings and letting them go through their life struggles. This oppressive situation requires action from us. Will you step up and fight for it? It's up to us. It's in our hands. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Have a great week, everybody. And as a point of reference, Ellis Winningham and I will be doing a show, a podcast, called Macro and Cheese. Macro and Cheese. I can't wait. Ellis and I have been practicing, working through stuff with Zencastr and Libsyn and all this other stuff, getting ready to put a website up, getting ready to do all kinds of stuff. It is going to be the most awesome thing ever because it's going to be comedy, it's going to be entertainment, but it's going to be education. And it's going to be cutting, poignant news. And you will not be regretting listening. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives and Macro and Cheese. Have a great night, everybody.